Super. Welcome, Bob Rivers. Bob Rivers is the chairman and CEO of Eastern Bank. Thank you for being here with the Roar webinar series.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Fina. It's great to be here.
Super. I am live. We are live. We're going to take questions in about 15 minutes, but I really wanted to talk about you. I wanted to talk about your leadership style. I also want to talk about why you believe you've been so successful, who's inspired you, and maybe think about some of the qualities that you possess that you feel have really come out and have helped in your success.
Okay.
Okay, so we'll start with who inspired you?
There's been a whole bunch of people that have inspired me along the way. Certainly my parents, in similar but very different ways. Friends along the way, people I've worked with. It's really hard to pin down, one person that really inspired me more than others. I think we take inspiration from lots of people in our lives for different reasons, and learn things from them in terms of things that we want to emulate or try to emulate, or things that we recognize aren't the things we want to emulate. So we know what that like's like too.
Exactly. I think you're right in that. Sometimes it's not just the person, but maybe it's the experience that has motivated you or inspired you. And oftentimes it's the qualities of the person that you don't want to emulate that inspire you to act totally different.
No question.
Can we talk about maybe an experience that has led to the way that you are as a leader, your leadership style?
I guess, one that jumps to mind, one of the bosses I had along the way is a guy by the name of Fred Kulikowski. In many ways, the best boss I ever had. And I worked in his group at M&T Bank in the Mid-Atlantic states in New York years ago. And I followed him out to Omaha, which is my last stint before I came back to Boston. And one piece of advice among many that Fred always left with me that I think is applicable for these times is he'd always say, whenever you're addressing an audience, talking to a team, remember, it's not about you, it's about them. And Fred has very high EQ as well as IQ, and really helped develop that side of me in a lot of ways. And I've always thought of that, certainly in these times where people have so many different challenges that are different than my own, and not trying to overly extrapolate what I'm feeling and experiencing to somebody else, but instead certainly trying to be in the moment with them, so that be here now philosophy, and really try to listen and appreciate, and as best I can, understand what people are going through, in order to make sure that I'm well level set for, what are the right approaches to take, the words to say, things of that nature.
Sure. Bob, it's obvious in this particular time that we're in with the coronavirus, with so many small businesses being challenged, that Eastern Bank has stepped forward in a really big way through your leadership. Can you talk about some of the things that inspired you to make these changes or make these opportunities happen for small businesses?
I mean, I think we've always had a proclivity, certainly, since I've been here at the company, I'll speak to that, of really taking a leadership stance, oftentimes one that others don't or do as often, do it strongly, and really step forward in order to be a voice for those that may not have the voice, resources, or influence that we would have as a fairly large employer. We try to do that in a number of ways. So it's very natural for us in this moment to step forward as opposed to step back. So again, it's been our proclivity. It's certainly my style. The things that matter to me most are, in the end of the day, have we made an impact? Have we had a real positive impact in the lives of people around us, those people that we work with, the customers and communities that we serve? And thinking about every day, how can we further that commitment and that work further than we already have? And there's a variety of ways. I mean, we're very blessed as an organization to, be well positioned, to have a lot of resources, to have lots of people around us like you, Fina, who offer us great advice as a board member, and give us lots of guidance and constructive criticism that makes us better. So I think as a result of that, total team effort from inside the company and really throughout all of the various connections we have externally, I think we're really well equipped to know what are the right things and at what right time and at what level to step forward and do some stuff. And that's what we've really tried to focus on throughout. My mindset when I get up every day is thinking about, what can I do when I come home tonight that we've really advanced the cause, whatever the cause might be, that we saw an opportunity, we could step out further, we could do it better. And thankfully, I work with a team here at Eastern that is of the same mindset and works hard and is smart and it doesn't require really much instruction or guidance from me, quite frankly. We're just so simpatico, I think, in terms of that mindset that we all move together in that way.
It's interesting. We were talking before we went live about leaders and leadership styles, and some leaders have gone to the background, and some leaders have really kind of stepped to the forefront, made really big impact, like yourself. I want to talk about when you get up in the morning. Every day is a new day, right? Especially now.
Right.
What inspires you? Are there any habits that you do that help you mold the day?
Yeah, I mean, again, I think it's all a matter of personal style. For me to be effective, I think it requires a lot of things. I think you have to be motivated, you have to be hardworking, you have to, be as smart as you can be. You have to be emotionally intelligent. But for me, the one defining thing that I always share that is so important for me is being organized and following a very disciplined regimen structure at all times. And so for me, when I get up in the morning, I get up at 4:30. I've always been blessed to be an early riser. So I get up at 4:30, and the first place I go to is a gym for an hour. And for me, that's not a matter of just physical health and appearance, which is obviously important in my role for a lot of reasons. But for me, it really helps activate my brain and gives me a chance to start thinking about the day before I jump in and start reacting to things. I mean, certainly in these times more than ever, when I do get to the office, all of a sudden things are hitting from all sides, and your ability to maintain your plan for the day is really difficult. But to the extent that I'm able to use that time while I'm working out, thinking about what's coming up for the day, or just other thoughts that come into my head about things that we could be doing or doing differently, and making notes of them. So I'm constantly making notes to myself on my cell phone during my workout as things occur to me, so I can keep a running list and always go back to it, um, and not lose those thoughts in the midst of all the madness, if you will, at times. But I think it really starts with those sort of core disciplines. Certainly in this time where the days run together and Sundays feel like Tuesdays, and it's hard to where the heck we are. I think to the extent that we can all kind of go back to sort of core disciplines, core values, a core mindset, and exercise that in whatever way you can. I'm not one of those people that ever grew a beard. Many are in this pandemic. That's not my style, and that would be a change for me for how I normally operate. And I think it would throw me off my stride. So what I've tried to do is just keep as consistent as I can in terms of how I operate during all this as I did before, so that at least I don't have that other level of stress trying to work through the day. And I think as a leader, one of the best things that I can demonstrate in the midst of all of this is calm, a sense of urgency, of course. So calm can't be, hey, it's going to be fine, and being laid back, because that can be as unsettling as the person who's freaking out. But I think if you can demonstrate calm, positivity, but be with a realistic mindset that understands what is going through, and show that urgency to move forward, I think that's a pretty good combination. But I do think that starts with making sure that you are your best self as you come into the day in whatever your particular pattern is. And that's what I've tried to do.
So I love that. I love that. I love the calm with a sense of urgency. I think you're absolutely right, because we look at for people to bring that sense of stability. We can bring it ourselves, but if someone is showing up in a way that is all over the place, it rattles you a bit.
Yeah.
And right now is time to be calm with a
Right.
sense of urgency. I love that. The other thing that I really like that you said, and I want to talk a little bit more about that, is reflect before reacting.
Yeah.
And I think that's super important. One of the things that I do when I get up in the morning is I always make my bed. It's just one of those things. I
Yeah.
make the bed.
Right.
It helps me say, I am done with sleeping. I'm ready to face the day.
Right.
That's one of the habits that I picked up along the way in order for me to be effective in whatever it is I'm doing. And I think that what I want to talk about is, where did these habits start forming in you? What point did you start seeing that those were important for you to be successful?
I mean, certainly from, early childhood, you know, uh, certainly the discipline that my mother, my father, my grandmother who lived with us at the time, again, I was more wired to get up earlier than my siblings. It allowed me to get certain things done, certain things around the house for which I, had positive reinforcement. My mother was a school teacher, would go off, and I was leaving a little bit later than she was. So I would clean the house in the morning for her. And for me, it was a matter of, not only trying to be contributory, and it was that behavior was always reinforced, but it was also because, I think I probably have to some degree undiagnosed obsessive compulsive disorder, quite honestly. I like things, I like order, I like things in their place um, around me in my physical environment, because I find it stressful when it's not that way. So I think from the very beginning, I was sort of born with some of these instincts. They were fostered. Um, there are many phrases that I use with my children today that drive them crazy. But they were phrases that I heard from my parents and my grandmother early on that have stuck with me. And I believe that they really, to me, represent the beginnings of a mantra for having as much impact as you'd like to have.
I like that. I think that, as I think about what I say to my boys, it's similar. I hear my parents saying, I hear some of the habits that I have that I've picked up and that I've honed into are the ones that maybe I picked up from my parents, or
Yeah.
that I picked up along the way, depending on what I was doing in terms of a career.
Yeah.
I have to say, I used to be a really early riser. Lately, I haven't been as much.
Yeah.
And to your point, it has kind of uh, taken the cadence for me for the day has changed because of that. And so I
Yeah.
need to regroup and go back and kind of pick up those good old habits that I had of getting up super early, because they do really help.
Yeah, no, I found the same. I mean, I'm here in Boston during the week, and then I go down to the Cape, where my family is throughout the week, to be there. And of course, because the work days are all blending into the weekends like never before. I find that when I'm down the Cape, because I don't have a ready gym there, so my workout regimen isn't there, and I'm changing up that routine ever so slightly. But I notice that my productivity isn't nearly as high as it normally would be, because I'm off my stride, even just a little bit. And so I go down there on Friday nights and I come back on Monday mornings. And no offense to my family, but I can't wait to get back here, because I look forward to operating in my own environment here, to, uh, my workout tomorrow morning, to get back on that regimen for 4 days before, again, I go back down the Cape, and that part of it's interrupted. But those little things really do matter. I really believe that.
Bob, I want to switch gears again and talk about, you mentioned that I was on the Eastern Bank board, which I am happy to be part of. But I want to talk about your process in really creating a board that's very diverse. Now, I've not seen anything like it, candidly. I remember a few years ago, you were meeting one by one. You're setting up meetings with people in the community that you serve and really deciding who would be a good fit for your board. And your board, out of any other company that I know of, is the most diverse.
Yeah, thank you. No, it's no, we're really proud of that. More than 50% of our board members are women and/or um, members of communities of color and/or members of the LGBTQ plus community, and that was really we really targeted that, and we're very intentional, as you know. But for us, it was really about better performance. First and foremost. And that's really what we were trying to accomplish. You know, we knew, particularly in this environment before COVID, and that's really the case now, but even given the changes in technology, we've been in a world that's more rapidly changing than it ever has before. And as a result, we're increasingly faced with more complex problems. And knowing that when I joined the company 14 years ago and just thinking about the impact that I wanted us to have, I knew that unless we performed better and we were more ready for the future, we wouldn't be successful. We couldn't do what we wanted to do. And we had to develop what I call that more robust collective mindset. Again, any group of people, and if they're alike, and you can use physical characteristics as a marker for that, it often is a pretty good correlator, but not the only one. If you have a group that works together that is too much similar in their backgrounds and experience, you're going to be in that echo chamber, and you are going to come up with solutions that are not holistic by definition and therefore less effective. So for us, reaching out to a more diverse board was about reaching out to find people with different experiences to add to the overall collective decision-making body, which would help us perform better. And you saw that bear out in the results. I mean, the last 3 years, we had record earnings, one after the other. And that was due to a lot of things and a lot of good work. But I credit the board and the advice and the guidance that we've received as a result of that. Not only drives performance, but what also drives performance is talent attraction and retention. And so we've increasingly developed a much more diverse senior leadership team and company overall. So it really has gone through the ranks. And I think that helps us obviously meet the market better and understand what the market wants. So for us, the whole focus on diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging, and all of that is really a strategic imperative. There are parts of it that are a moral imperative, certainly, but they're really a strategic imperative. They're a business imperative. There's a real business case. And I'm always surprised and disappointed that other companies don't make that connection, because ours is an example of that, but there are others. Studies for years have shown that the more diverse you have, more diverse your team is, the more diverse your leadership is, the better you're going to perform. And despite all of that body of evidence, the fact that others don't go at this with a degree of intentionality, they're really missing out. So we talk about that all the time. To some degree, selfishly, in a way, that's great for us, because we're able to attract people in certain roles without as much competition, whereas if other companies had pursued this more intentionally. But they are thankfully starting to do that a little bit. And we would certainly encourage them to do that for all those reasons.
No, I've always been impressed by that. And I remember when you started that process, and how you went about doing it. It was very intentional, very strategic. And as you look at your board, it's obviously very diverse.
Yeah.
The other thing that has impressed me is how connected you are to the small businesses, in particular, the small businesses of color. You have a program within Eastern Bank that really connects small businesses and their needs and helps them strategically grow. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Sure. So we set up something now 3 years ago called the Foundation for Business Equity. It's a separate foundation here at Eastern. We took $10 million initially out of the Eastern Bank Charitable Foundation to establish it. And really what we hope to accomplish through the Foundation for Business Equity was really help in some way address the yawning wealth gap between white households and those of color. And if you've seen the statistics in the Federal Reserve's Color of Money report from 2015, you'll know what I'm talking about. It has, the classic example that everyone talks about is white households, 247,500 in terms of an average net worth, whereas Black households are $8, which is stunning, right? But when you look at Latinx households, it's higher than $8, but not appreciably. And again, the gap is enormous. So we looked at that study and said, we think we could help address this in some way. What we focused on were small businesses. There's lots of ways you could address those racial wealth gaps. We picked small businesses because we wanted to focus on an area where we brought something to the party beyond just strong interest in philanthropic capital. We wanted to bring our own intellectual capital, our business, what we do. And as the number one small business lender in New England for the last 10, 11 years now, we felt that's a strength of ours. That's a real focus. We can bring the company's full resources to that, to this overall effort, and ultimately set up an approach that brings capital vis-a-vis a partnership with the Boston Foundation and others, contracts from other larger employers in conjunction with the Chamber, and our own capacity building program called the Business Equity Initiative to really help specifically focused on Black and Latinx businesses to help them scale in the hope that the following would happen. Not only would that create more wealth for the owners and key principals of the company, but also create more jobs with life-sustaining wages in communities that really need them. So we've tackled that in terms of cohorts of 10 now over the last couple of years, and it's informed our thinking in so many ways. We're involved in another effort right now with business leaders around town to scale that very, very significantly. So hopefully more to come on that by the end of this month. And also, it was also instructive in terms of the Paycheck Protection Program, the PPP that we're going through, because what we recognized right out of the gate that in this gold rush for money, that our smaller businesses, our very smallest businesses, and those in which, unfortunately, businesses of color are really concentrated, they were really going to be left behind in that race because they don't have a dedicated CFO. They don't have a big time law firm or accounting firm. They might not have a dedicated relationship with a banker. And as a result, they were literally left to figure out this very complicated and ever-changing process on their own. And so we, through FBE, in conjunction with CDFIs, Berkshire Bank, other smaller community banks, put together a triage team to do outreach to businesses of color in the PPP program that's going on right now. Because again, in the first come, first served of the PPP, larger companies were just running over smaller companies, regardless of how you would describe them. And we knew that without violating the first come, first serve that the SBA wanted, that we had to kind of do something else in addition to what we were doing for our customers to really reach out to them. So that's, again, these things, whenever you do them, and we've seen this time and time again, we've been very lucky this way. And I think we've made our own luck because we've tried new things and we have found not only have they helped meet a need for the moment, but because we had them available, they help meet the need of a future moment as they're helping us right now.
Super. No, I've been impressed, super impressed with what Eastern Bank is doing with the PPP, which I was calling PPE. I don't know why.
Yeah, well, there is PPP, PPE. All these new acronyms and phrases at this time, right?
That's right. That's right. But let me step back. We only have a few more minutes. I want to talk again more on the personal front and talk about you. What do you do when you are not working because I know when you're working, your mind is constantly going. What do you do to settle yourself down? Maybe it's I garden. I've said that a number of times, which I got serious poison ivy this weekend from. But what do you do that that is a habit?
Yeah, well, certainly my workout really helps settle me down. It relieves stress, and it helps me go into the day with a sense of energy and calm. Um, in terms of other things, I mean, I like to read a lot. I mean, I'm working all the time in one form or fashion. For me, this is a vocation. It's not a job. It's not even a career. I've been called to this in many ways, and I think of it in those religious terms, if you will, and because for me, it's all encompassing, and I love it. Um, there'll be, some recreational reading that I do around history that I find interesting and sort of takes my mind off the direct focus of it, but nonetheless find an application. I'm a passionate wine enthusiast, so certainly when I can spend time with that hobby is enjoyable. But those are the things that really help calm me down. The other thing I will tell you that's I think has been contributory to my success is I really value my sleep, and I'm very disciplined around and how much I get. So I'm up at 4:30, but my goal is I'm in bed by 9:30, and so I'm getting 6 to 7 hours a week without fail on a consistent schedule. I think beyond I would, and if I had to compromise on time, which happens, of course, I would always pick sleep over the workout. Again, sleep is, I think, one of the healthiest things you can do. I've known a lot of people in my life that are able to operate with less sleep. Good for them. Generally speaking, as human beings, I don't think it's healthy. And so as a result, sleeping is one of the things that's pretty high in my personal regimen.
Super. I am just going to make sure that there's no questions, and I don't see any questions currently. We've got 3 more minutes before we end the session. So
Sure.
I wanted to, I think it was Adriana Huffington that talks about sleeping and how much she sleeps. I think she's mentioned that she sleeps 8 hours.
Yeah.
I love sleeping.
Yeah.
I used to be, when I was growing up, I was the sleep queen because I would take so many naps, and I still do.
Yeah. Good for you.
Yeah, I try to sleep, go to bed early, get up, but insomnia often gets in the way. I don't know if you have anything that you do personally that helps you with putting your mind to rest, because oftentimes it just keeps going.
Yeah. No, I've always been lucky. I'm a pretty sound sleeper. Um, and so when I go to bed, I pretty much sleep straight through. Um, on the off chance that, I might wake up momentarily in the middle of the night, one thing I know is to not do is pick up the phone. Because then your brain gets activated and it's over. And in these times of crisis, it's very hard not to do. So, making sure I'm looking at it on a black screen and not spending it too much and just doing a quick check to make sure there isn't something on fire at this moment in time. But yeah, I've been pretty lucky that even when I do get up and do a quick check, I can fall back to sleep.
Super. Well, Bob, thank you so much.
Oh, thank you. Great to see you.
It's great seeing you. I have a comment from Juliet Mayers. Bob, thanks so much for your leadership. I'm honored to serve on the Eastern's Board of Corporators. Thank you for being such an inspirational leader.
Great. Thank you, Juliet. Appreciate that. So
I second the sentiments. Thank you, Bob. It was great having you. It's always great to be able to not only learn about the leader and what they do, but also some of the things that help them be inspirational leaders.
well, thanks for the opportunity. I appreciate it. Be well. Take care, everybody.
Thank you so much. Bye-bye.